Doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm a UX designer and developer. Yeah, and Alex is pulling up my website. I don't have a lot of stuff on there to show currently, but there's a link at the bottom to my old one, which you may have seen. I've also created a lot of demos, like if you go to my Twitter account, it's just a setup. There's a lot of little demos you might have seen tweeted or retweeted at some point in the past couple of years. I do a lot of interface work, a lot of animation, things like that. Um, I currently work for UFC, basically designing and developing software that they use to run their events, and that's my spiel. Uh,
There we go. Here. Oh, there we go. Huh? Me now? Can you hear me now? All right. I think we're good. I think we're back. I think I'm back.
were
All
they
right. There
picking
we
me
go.
up?
I'm gonna do a little bit of an intro again, just because I said a whole bunch of stuff and nobody but you heard it. So let's try this again. And yeah, so they can definitely hear you, Darin. Um,
Okay.
Hello, welcome. So, hello, welcome. It is the last Wednesday in May, which means we are building out the final component to a fantastic month of component carousel. This month's theme is the Grim Reaper's used car dealership. So we've had four people on. Well, we've had three people on. This is the fourth, and each week we built out a different component using some kind of different technique or strategy. It's a different component style. It's been all just fantastic stuff. And today we have Darin Senneff on, and he just introduced himself. You were able to hear him, and now you can hear me. So yeah, I pulled up Darin's website because I showed this to so many people. Darin, I keep going like anytime I bring you up, I'm like, you got to see this site. I mean, first off, the fact that it's like deprecated in some way just kind of breaks my heart. But I'm so glad that you have it here. It especially breaks my heart that it's underneath the sitemap and the privacy policy, because this thing is just like, it's so next level. It's so good. Um, and yeah, so please check this out at some point, chat. It is one of my favorite things where Darin becomes a superhero and then he flies around as you scroll down the page. And then his references are people that I assume these people look similar to the people that are actually giving the reference. Is that accurate, Darin?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Yeah.
for the most part.
And then you go down this elevator into like your secret lab, and you have a whole about me section, and then you have these awesome random Darin facts where your avatar turns into like a version of these facts. Like you love Die Hard, like that. Like I've taken so many people through this site. I promise. I guarantee there's someone in the chat who's like, "Yep, he's shown this to me," because it's just one of my
Nice.
favorite things. As soon as I found it, I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" And then you go up in the sky, and you got some of your work. So
Yeah.
yeah, this is just it's just so creative. It's just such a great spin on a personal site.
Thank you, man.
So yeah, I could gush about that all day, but that's kind of a taste of, and that's a 2015 taste of Darin's skills. So he's 6 years more mature than this now.
I
We
don't know about
assume.
mature, but
Yeah.
it's 6 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so great. And I just want to give a shout out to Bruno Simone. His course is what we were giving away in the chat. So if you hit !enter in the chat, just like the Streamlabs bot said, you get a chance to win a really fantastic course. There's just a ton here. There's 40 hours worth of content. Definitely enter that raffle. We've been giving away one for each week, and it's the last week for this. So make sure you enter and hopefully win it. But with that said, let's hop over to the site that we are working on, because let me close this out. Because this is the last week, and you've got an awesome addition that you're going to be adding, but I kind of want to show people who might not have seen it what
Yeah.
we're adding to. So the first week we had Louis, and he came on and he built us. So a voice-activated Unsplash image search. So we connected the voice API to the Unsplash API, and so you can do something like this where you go red car, and it brings
That's
up red
awesome.
cars. And I've learned to hit the stop button because I just keep talking usually. But yeah, such a cool idea. So we did that for the first week. The second week was, I think, yeah. The second week was Jamie, and I had this backwards where you're scrolling back, but and we made this, and this is completely powered by just checkboxes. There's no JavaScript involved here besides the React templating, but these are just labels powering checkboxes, and we made an entire like slider out of it. Just a really cool component, and you got the code pen there. And then last week we had Ryan Mulligan on, and he built an awesome deal wheel where you spin it around, and depending on what you land on, he responds in a different way. So his partner drew this awesome Grim Reaper, and he has like 4 different animations with it. Really fun component. You got the code pen there. And then we've got this, and it's just kind of boring. And Darin, I was really hoping that you could help me out with this boring 4th component. So it's kind of like a share component where it's just like you can type in someone's name or just send them an email and it'll share this page with them. It's kind of lame. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking we can do something about this.
Cool.
Luckily, there's a really cool newer API available in the browser called the Web Share API. If you want to look it up there, there's a lot of information on MDN.
So I can drop
There's
this.
this is also, it's a spec. It's not like just some random library or something someone came up with. This is an actual spec, but that someone at the W3C came up with, and there's people working on this and implementing it. I think the main drivers were people at Google, but it's really cool if you, I have it open, but I can send you a link. The spec's pretty interesting to read.
Cool.
It just kind of goes over the expectations and the the functionality and things like that. But essentially, what this is it brings the native sharing capabilities of an operating system and a device over to web developers. You probably use the native sharing capabilities of the device. Let's say you've taken a photo with your smartphone, and you hit the little share button, and then like a kind of a share sheet opens up, and you have the ability to share it to Twitter, share it to Instagram, text message it, email it, whatever you want to do. It's just baked into the operating system, and it just makes it really easy to share things like that. And so this API basically brings that same functionality to web developers, and so it makes it just gives them more opportunity, gives us more opportunities to add this kind of sharing capabilities to our sites and to our applications. I think maybe the first good step would be maybe we jump over to our code and we can kind of just implement just the bare bones functionality, and I can kind of walk through what each thing does.
Awesome.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, it sounds great. So I've got this file, and basically right now it is exactly what you saw, and it's just this. It's not really doing much for us. It's just kind of static. And so first, what I'm gonna do is kind of give us some space to do some actual JavaScript. So I'm gonna put a little return here because right now it's just returning the JSX. So now you got a little bit of space for some JavaScript. And so we don't have to change the template just yet. If you don't want, we can just kind of see how to work with.
Yeah, we can just kind of write the function, and once we add more stuff later, we can hook it up to what we're adding.
Cool.
Cool. So first thing to know about this API is there's a few requirements for us to be able to use it. First one is that it must be supported on your device. Obviously, if you don't have a device that supports or even offers this functionality through its operating system, it's just not going to work. The second one is you need a browser that has implemented the API. The third one is it has to be in a secure context, so HTTPS is the only context it'll work in your browser. And the fourth one, it has to be initiated by a user. So that means developers can't just pop a share thing open like when a page loads or something on their end. It has to be user initiated. So that's usually going to be a button click in most cases. I can't imagine another user action that might do that, but you know.
Cool.
So those are the requirements for it. Browser support's pretty good. Obviously, this was inspired by mobile devices and smartphones, so
Right.
the support is better on that type of on those types of things. Obviously, iPhones with iOS and Safari, it's supported. Android devices with Chrome, it's supported. I believe it's also supported in Firefox on Android, but I haven't tested that, so I can't say one way or the other.
Yeah, it's got a little thing here. Firefox for Android does not support sharing files or text, so it seems like
Okay.
websites are good, but the files are
Okay.
text. So
yeah, I can touch on that in a second.
Cool.
On desktop, it works well in Safari on Mac OS, and it does work on Windows in the Chrome browser as well. Though I will say that in my testing, there is a bug in the implementation on Chrome for Windows, and I've filed a bug with the Chromium team, and they're kind of, I think they're kind of figuring out if it's possible for them to get around. There's some sort of issue with Windows and the browser and how they communicate, and they're trying to figure out if they can get around that bug or not. So just know that if you're testing it on both Chrome for Windows and like Safari for Mac or whatever, the implementations might be just slightly different. So it's just something to, and it's a newer API, so that stuff's going to happen anyways.
Yeah, so it seems like it should be like a progressive enhancement thing where you like
exactly.
If it's available, you can lean on that, but if it's not, you fall back to some kind of, like to kind of our not as great implementation where, all right, we're just going to open like like your Twitter, your email thing, like that's been a popular thing that you've had for a while, but leaning on the native OS share is going to be way better.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. So where do we want to? So we're over here. So
let's can we make this like a blank function and call like share or share it or something like this? And then later once we get our button in place.
Did you say share?
Can we share maybe? Let's call share or share it. Just the name of the function. And then
share
later
it.
when we add a button.
Okay. That was the word I was, yeah.
When we add our button later, we can add this to the click handler of that button.
All right, cool.
Perfect. So the first thing that we need to implement for the share API is we need to create an object, and the object can contain up to 4 things. So we can create an object. Let's call it share data.
Cool.
Perfect. So the share API, when we actually call the sharing function, we're going to pass this object as a parameter in that function, and this is going to be what we're actually sharing.
Got it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Thought you made a noise.
I mean, I probably did, but it was a I got you noise.
No problem. So the share API can share up to 4 things. It's important to note that 3 of them are well supported, and 1 of them is only kind of partially supported at this moment.
Okay.
So when it initially launched, the big 3 were title, text, and URL. So if we want to add those 3 properties into our object here.
Cool. So title, I'm just going to put
title, and this is going to be what, I can talk about this in a minute while you type it. So basically title is going to be whatever the title is that we're sharing. So this could be the title of a web page, it could be the title of an email, if we're sharing via email, whatever. Cool. But it's also important to note that when the share API shares this data, they're basically sending it out to this other application, and it's up for the application to pick that information up and use it however it's going to be. So if we're sharing to an email application, that email application has to have been developed to receive that information and use it accordingly. And that's not always a guarantee.
Okay.
So while sharing, let's say if we're going to share to an email application, we would think that this title would end up being the subject of the email. And I think that's the idea, but I haven't found an email application yet that's correctly applied that. I found that mostly the title kind of gets ignored. So we can include the title, but I think the big 2 is going to be text and the URL. So text is going to be whatever the text we want to accompany with our share. So if we're going to, share on Twitter or write a text message, this is what it's going to say. So we can just say something like, check out these cool deals to die for, and URL is going to be obviously the URL of the web page that we're sharing. And in our example here, we're just sharing the main homepage of the Grim Reaper's site. Cool. If you were implementing this in, say, like a blog roll, or maybe another page of the site, like where we have a listing of all the different cars, and you could even dynamically, create this share data object where you're, adding the permalink to a certain car listing, or permalink to a blog listing, or whatever.
So something more like that, where it would just be like a path that you would pass
Exactly.
this function, and then it would bring you to that page. That's cool.
Exactly. And then we're not using the files inside our share data, but that is a newer addition to the share API, where you can share images or PDFs or whatever. Though that support isn't, I think it's only available in Safari at the moment. I have a demo on my CodePen that uses the files parameter.
Cool.
From, I think, the fall. You can go back and check it if anyone's interested. But in that case, I'm sharing an image as well. Okay, so we have our share data objects. And so the next thing that we want to do is, if we want to, we could progressively test if this capability is available. So we could do something like if navigator.share, which is the main sharing function that we would use.
Got it.
If that's available, this is where we're going to put the rest of our functionality. And if we want to do, if it's not available, we could do else, and then whatever our fallback is. Maybe we swap out our share button for maybe just links to Twitter or whatever, Facebook. But this is where our fallback functionality would happen. Or in like a progressive enhancement situation, we would probably do the opposite. We would probably load the page with our links to Twitter, Facebook, email, whatever. And then if the navigator share comes back, yes, this functionality is available, we can swap those links out with a button or whatever we want to do.
Awesome.
So in our, let's say the sharing is available, awesome. Then we're actually going to do the sharing. So maybe we put it like a console log statement, just so we can follow along in the browser console.
Perfect.
We can put like sharing supported.
Just come back to this and open that up. Cool. Let's just pop that. All right, so sharing
supported.
And Windows, I should have prepared better for this. I was doing this on my Mac a bit. We're going to see this. So Windows Chrome here. Let me just go back to what's supported. PC. So is it Windows Edge is supported?
I would assume Edge is too, because I think Edge and Chrome both run off a branch of Chromium at the moment.
Okay, cool. So Chrome should, okay, so Chrome is fine. Sharing not. Is, oh, so ShareIt's not even being.
Oh yeah, it's not even being called.
Yeah, that might. All right, cool. Yeah, so navigator's not defined. That was the other thing. So if not, because it's also doing server-side rendering, so we just have to check if not navigator, return. Navigator's not defined. Oh, yeah, wait. But okay, always, what am I missing here? Is navigator on window? It shouldn't be, right? No, is it? No.
I've always just used it alone. I haven't used window.navigator, but maybe
don't know what I'm
React's
forgetting.
Causing an issue with it.
Yeah, is Mac? No. Navigator.platform. Is Mac type of window undefined navigator platform uppercase? Wait, is this my? No, I don't need navigator.platform. Type of window undefined. Hey, Tanner, welcome. Just trying to figure out why navigator's breaking on me here. Navigator's not defined, but right, that's why I'm checking for it. If there's no navigator, return. If navigator is undefined, do I have to do type of? I'm always. Cassie, thank you for that subscription. I appreciate that. That's so kind. All right. Check for navigator. I thought I just searched that. Jamie, how's it going? How to detect. Need to write. Why is this? I don't need navigator.platform. Sorry about this. I did not have this issue earlier, and I forget what I checked, how I checked for it. Navigate between pages, advanced. If anybody in the chat sees.
Is this a React thing? Was that?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and wrap this. I think that the solution here is going to be best to do a use effect so that this gets called in here. Hey, Louie, good to see you. Got everybody in here. Everybody's turning out to see Darin's thing. Now I just need to get through this part, and then they can see it. Let's see. I'm just going to keep winging it until... There we go. All right, so we can get rid of this navigator check. I think we did. Yeah, let's share it. Cool. All right, sharing supported. Sharing supported. All right, we made it through.
Right,
we survived.
nice.
That's all you wanted to show us, right? So we're good. We're done.
Exactly. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm signing off.
Console logs. You're welcome, chat. Welcome.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right.
And Jamie's right. I figured it'd take Alex 26 minutes to configure React, basically. So we're gonna move to 11 next month. I might. That might encourage Cassie to come back on or something. I'm not sure, but 11 seems like the way to go, so we don't hit these little hurdles. All right, back to you, Darin.
Nice. All right, so we know it's supported. We've checked. Now we're going to call our share function.
Awesome.
So inside of that conditional, we're just going to do a navigator.share. And in the share, we're going to pass that share data object into there. And now this is this is promise based. So we're going to need to set up if the promise is rejected or if it's resolved successfully. So we'll add a then for if it's resolved successfully. And then we're going to add.
Do we get a message?
We'll add it. We'll do, and inside the then we'll add like a fat arrow function.
Cool.
And then same thing for catch for if it is rejected. And we'll do a fat arrow function inside that within like error parameter or whatever.
Yeah, console error.
Console log. Yeah, console error, and then pass that in. Yeah, that'll work perfectly. So for whatever reason it doesn't work.
I'm sorry. I'll be honest. I got distracted by the chat. They're saying that I'm a hot tub streamer now, which would probably pay a lot better than this. But I don't. No, actually, it wouldn't because I'm me. If I was someone who could be a hot tub streamer, then yeah, it would pay a lot better. But me as a hot tub no. But thank you, chat. I'm flattered. Anyway, sorry. I if you said something there, Darin, my mind was elsewhere.
No. That what you were talking about was way more important. So. All right. So inside, so let's skip to our second our catch statement there. Okay. So basically, exactly what you wrote. If the user, we don't need to add more space. I was just kind of explaining the circumstances why it would be rejected. If you go to the spec, it'll list all the reasons why this promise would come back rejected. But most of the time, it's going to be because the user initiated a share, the OS share sheet opens, and the user hits cancel or something like that. So that would be a situation where this would come back rejected. The user canceled or whatever.
Cool. So
we go back.
It's not that something broke. That's kind of like a pretty common thing.
It also could be because something broke.
Right. But it's not always.
Like maybe there was a false positive. The browser thought the browser supported it, and for whatever reason, our navigator share just slipped through the cracks of the OS, and now the OS doesn't know what to do with it. Cool. That could be another example. All right, so we got that, our error in place. Now in the meat of it, we can basically maybe do a console log, share successful or share completed.
Cool.
And later, once we add our animation, this is where we're going to trigger our successful animation to play is in the same spot.
Awesome. All right. So
we don't have a button yet. That's calling the, I think you're calling it.
We're just calling it on the drop. And like you said,
and if you remember,
we can't trigger it, right?
Initiated. Yeah. So we could add a button right now and test it.
Let's just throw it on the button we have.
Our next step, we can style.
Or let's just grab the share button, yank it out of this. Is it even in a form? It's not even in a form. See, I just grabbed these templates from this this thing that just has them for free, but the semantics are a little dicey. No hard offense to that.
That's usually the case.
Yeah, but it's an easy way to get kind of like the before and then the after for this for the whole concept. So, what is this? What are we calling it? Share it.
Yep.
Cool. And then we get rid of this and the use effect. All right. So now that it's here, this should. There it is. Awesome.
Perfect. Open the OS share sheet. We can do whatever we want to do. We can share it. We can copy it. We can mail it.
Cool. Now, one thing that we need to kind of note here that you explained to me before is that with Windows, it it doesn't wait for the share to complete to say that it's completed, right? So like
Exactly.
as soon as I click this, it says share complete. Where when I do this on my iPhone or on Mac, it waits for me to actually do something, and then once I do that, then it does the share complete thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So basically, on iOS and Mac, the implementation is a lot tighter. I assume it's because on those platforms, like the messaging app and the mail app, those are kind of intertwined with the operating system,
Right.
and so they're able to get those events easier and pass those into Safari. Whereas on Windows, Chrome isn't intertwined with the Windows operating system like Safari is with iOS. And so on the Chrome implementation currently, as soon as that share is initiated, the promise comes back completed, successful. It does not wait to see if you've actually shared it or not.
Right.
And that's actually against the spec. And that's the bug I was referring to earlier that I've filed with the Chromium team, and they're.
You just cut out, Darin. Your audio just cut out. I think the Chromium team might have hacked into our feed and is silencing Darin so that his good work. No, I still can't hear you. Chromium team, like he's just trying to help. It's not my headphones, is it? I need to. How do I test my sound? Can anyone else wait? No, can you say something, Darin? Yeah, no, I'm not seeing it on the headphone jack output. A little bit of audio. Okay, just checking. Thank you, Louie. A little bit of audio trouble. If you want to refresh that page, Tanner. I know. Right, Cassie? I'm quite noisy. I'm glad that I can hear us play charades. Yeah, if you just explain it with your hands, Darin, that'd be good. If you want to try maybe refreshing that tab that you have OBS Ninja open in, if you want to try. I'm getting harassed by Cassie in the chat. So there we go. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, my wireless headphones just disconnected and then reconnected.
Ah, fun. All right, cool.
But what I was saying was there's a bug filed with the Chromium team, and they're figuring out if they're able to get around that limitation or not. So
I'm sure they're working
hard. Aware of that.
Let's not have them shut us down anymore. They're probably in Chrome, and yeah, I don't trust it. All good, we can hear too. Cool. Thank you, chat. All right. So we've got it set up. It's working. So now
we've got our bare bones functionality in there. Everything's working great.
I'm gonna hit the little check. So I didn't even point this out to the chat, but we got this checkbox thing so you can kind of see where we're going, where we've been, and any second now, boom, there we go. Got a little checkbox. So you built out the basic functionality. Now we're on to checking out some visual mockups, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
So if you want to bump over to my screen, I can kind of show what I've been working on.
All right. So this is really cool. We're kind of doing this like behind the scenes, so to speak, view into your process. So take it away, Darin.
So I can't see. Is my screen up?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I mocked these screens up in Illustrator. Obviously, you might use something else, Sketch, Figma, whatever you want to use. But basically, this is my vision for this component. We have our heading, we have our sentence, our share button, and I've included this little Grim Reaper illustration where he's leaning on the card here. And then once the user shares and the share is completed, the illustration is going to kind of end up like this, where a skeleton pops out of the trunk, high fives the Grim Reaper, and that's just kind of like that's going to play once the sharing is completed. So that's my vision for kind of our little component here. But I do want to kind of explore a little bit how I've done some of
Yeah,
these things in Illustrator.
please.
So
I'm not sure if you see, by the way, but the chat is saying that these look amazing, and I totally
oh,
agree.
thank you so much.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, I don't have the chat up, so thank you for relaying that. That's great to hear. Nothing here too fancy. If you've done any kind of vector drawing, this will all make sense. But I got my Grim Reaper guy. That's cool. When we open the trunk, this trunk is basically just a path like that. And when we animate the trunk, we're going to do something like basically scale it like this to open it up. On the success animation, look at these high fives. So the Grim Reaper and the skeleton both have arms that just look like this, where it's just basically a stroked path,
Yeah,
2 points.
that's really smart
Like
because
so.
that's a lot easier to animate than if it had like some depth to it, right? Like if it was
Exactly.
like
It's
a
a lot
rectangle.
easier than if it was um,
like a rectangle with two sides, then you have to manage
yeah,
twice the
basically
amount of points
a
and
filled path like this.
right.
That's going to be a pain in the butt to animate, because here we can see we have 4 points on our path, and we also have Bezier curves to consider. And so if we're going to move this, basically change this path from one orientation to another configuration, it's just a lot of things to deal with, and it's going to be more trouble than it's worth.
Right.
By using just a single path that's stroked with 2 points, it's going to be a lot easier to animate this, because we only have 2 points to think of, and we don't have to worry about kind of the thickness of
Cool.
4 sides of an arm rather.
Right.
So that just makes it a lot easier. Character animation on the web is really, I think, difficult, and if you use the right kind of art style and design style, you can kind of get away with some things and make things a lot easier. And this is one of those cases where the animated limbs, always use this kind of rubber hose, not always, but one thing that makes it a lot easier is to use this kind of rubber hose style of illustration, where the arm or a leg or whatever is just a stroked path, as
Right.
opposed to has 4 points or more. So that's the arms. The hands are basically just another shape. It's a rounded rectangle, more or less.
Cool.
This skeleton, we can see that in Illustrator I've masked him, or I've used a clipping path rather, so that it looks like he's inside of the trunk here. If I drill down, we can see that this is just a skeleton with the same thing, strokes, limbs, rounded rectangle for a hand. And when we animate this guy coming out of the trunk, we're basically going to be animating him on the y-axis here to make him look like he's popping out like so.
Love it.
The back of the trunk here, or rather, I guess it would be the inside of the trunk. We're going to do the same thing. Is basically when we open the trunk, we're just going to be scaling it to make it look like it's opening up.
Yeah, that's effective.
Yeah. So I've mocked up almost like a storyboard our two, what I see as 2 states of our animation. And then for exporting purposes, I always will throw my illustrations onto one artboard, include all the objects I'm working with, so it's all in one spot, and I don't have to export 2 different illustrations and then combine parts from one with parts from the next. I got it all in one spot. So here we have everything. If I drill into this Grim Reaper, we can see that we have the original arm and hand, but I also have some hidden arms and hands over here as well, which are, I have them opacity 0 now. I'll bump them up to 100 so you can see them. But basically, these are going to be the different states of our arm, and these are going to be the shapes, or rather, we're going to be using these shape paths to morph this arm shape between these 2 things, and that's what's going to cause the high-fiving motion of our animation. So I have 4 arms and I have 4 hands. And if I look over into my layers panel in Illustrator, we can see that I've given each of these a name in this layer. Reaper hand, Reaper arm, and then I have hand and arm 2, hand and arm 3, hand and arm 4. And I just have those extra ones set to opacity 0 so that
Right.
they're hidden initially, and I don't have to deal with, hiding them, in the code to start. Skeleton's the same thing, just a bunch of copies. You can kind of see those highlighted in the layers there in pink, and it's going to be the same deal.
Cool. That's
Not
awesome.
let me make it bigger, but yeah.
Yeah, and so when you name it in Illustrator, that's going to sustain when you export.
Exactly. I'm going to show that right now, actually. So
nice.
I just want to show some of the other layers. Yep. So like these pieces of the trunk, we have trunk outer, trunk inner, and so on. I don't think I need to show every single layer, but you guys get the gist. The things that I think I want to identify in my code, I've named in Illustrator so that I can follow them later, or rather I can identify them later.
Cool.
And let's look at the Starburst last. Basically, this is just a group, and I have this 8 little lines that are just stroke lines here. And I'm calling this Starburst, and you can see that these are all just shapes inside the Starburst group. And then when they high five, it's going to kind of like Starburst out.
Awesome.
So I'm going to export this from Illustrator. And in my opinion, the best way is to go File, Export, Export for Screens here. I'll click on that. And this Export for Screens dialog box pops open. And I can export any number of artboards, but in this case, I only want this one where I've consolidated all the objects I'm going to be working with. So that checks. We can choose our location up here. Our format, we want SVG, so we want to make sure SVG is selected here. And then I'm going to click on this gear icon to check my SVG export setting. This will open up another dialog box.
Oh, nice.
We'll click on SVG, and these are the settings we want to check. So styling, I prefer presentation attributes. The alternatives are, CSS or inline styles, which basically is Illustrator going to insert all the styling into the code, either in the form of CSS styles or inline styles. And I do not like those at all. I prefer the presentation attributes. If you choose one of these two options where it injects CSS in, that can often interfere with other SVGs in your document or other styles that you're using to style, the DOM elements in your page, and it just turns into a mess in my opinion. So I prefer the presentation attributes for inline SVGs at least.
What is that? I'm not familiar with what a presentation attribute
Presentation
is.
attributes. So instead of,
I guess we'll see it though.
So if I would have chose inline style, if you imagine my skeleton's arm,
it's all
there might be a style attribute, and then it would say something like stroke, stroke equals FFF white.
Right.
Stroke width equals 6, and so on. If I do presentation attributes, then instead of a style attribute on our tags, on our SVG tags, it'll have like a fill attribute equals this, and a stroke attribute equals this, and a stroke width attribute equals this.
So instead of the style, okay,
yeah.
I got it. I know exactly what you mean.
So it's basically
cool.
using this attributes on the SVG tags themselves, as opposed to a style rule with the properties listed or inline styles with the properties listed.
Very cool.
Fonts, we don't have any text in actually we have text in the license plate, and I've already converted it to outlines. Cool. But if we had text, this basically convert the outlines automatically if we needed it to. There's no images in this illustration, so we can kind of ignore this.
And by images, you mean like a raster image, like a JPEG.
Exactly. So imagine like if we had like an old timey map and we were drawing like Indiana Jones style, where we were drawing like his path over top the map. This would allow us to determine how that image is handled. Do we want it embedded into the SVG, or do we want it linked as a separate file, or whatever?
Cool.
This is the big one, the object IDs. And this is what I showed a minute ago in our layers panel over here with all the names of the various shapes.
Yeah.
By choosing layer names, this is going to retain that into our exported SVG code. And that's what I want, so I can identify the various elements I need to work with. Minimal, I think, basically comes up with just auto names. Like A or B or C or
which is
AA.
like, that's fine if all you need is the styles, but when it comes to animation, you want a name that you can identify, right?
Exactly. We need something we can identify easily. And looking at a bunch of code and being, okay, what's A, what's B? It's going to be hard to determine.
Right.
So unique. I might have just explained unique. I can't remember the difference between minimal and unique, but
No
they
worries.
basically they're both auto-generated by Illustrator.
Cool.
We want our names that we came up with. So layer names. Decimal is 2. This basically just rounds off long decimals. I don't think I had many in here, but possibly. And I'm not going to check either of these. We don't want it minified because we want to be able to look at the structure. And responsive basically more or less just kills the width and height attribute of our SVG, which I'm going to keep in place.
Okay.
So save settings. I'm going to hit export artboard. It exports that. And I'm just going to open it really quick in VS Code to just show this exported file. And it's already collapsed some of these things. And so we can look at this. This is our.
Can you bump up the size a bit?
Yeah.
Cool. Nice.
Better?
Yep. Much better.
So this is basically our illustration. And the way Illustrator has kind of transcribed it into code here. You can see we have a root SVG node. We have some depths, which kind of define our gradients used, and some of the clipping paths, like here's the path of the trunk that the skeleton's going to be popping out of. And I think this one's for maybe the skeleton's mouth and so on.
Cool.
We have our car element. Don't need that. Our trunk inner and outer elements and so on. I'm just going to point out our group with ID skeleton. Inside that, we have all of our skeleton arms and legs paths right here. So these are the ones that we're going to be animating to do the high five. And same thing for the Reaper. And then our Starburst, obviously, we have Starburst with a bunch of line elements inside it. Whoops,
cool.
What did I just do?
So the group that you created in Illustrator by hitting like Command G or Control G becomes a group in SVG.
Yes. Yes. That's absolutely right, but I messed it up.
All
but
good?
yeah, that's exactly it. So I am gonna copy and paste this to you, and we can drop this into our page.
Sounds good. I'll pull up. So the only thing is that we need to reactify it, so to speak.
Okay.
Did you paste that over?
Yep.
I will. People. Cool. All right, so we're over to me, and now just gonna. There we go. Cool. So can I download that message? Sure. Message.txt. Sure. All right. Let's pull that up here. All right. So actually, let's just add an SVG inside this social share. So what's a good name for this?
Let's just call it
drawing or
share graphic or something, or drawing SVG is good.
Yeah. Originality, not my forte today, at least. Cool. So we've got that. Thank you for that walkthrough, because that honestly is something that I don't think a lot of people have seen, and so it kind of seems like when you go into an SVG with green sock, or even if you pull one from offline and you bring it into Figma or in Illustrator, it's tough to figure out, or if you just paste it in, like if you go to Unsplash or something and just paste that SVG in, it's really hard to figure out. All right, I want to animate, the ball that's on the ground in that image. How do I animate that one? Which one is that one? I don't know. So knowing how to set it up is kind of half the battle, I feel like, right?
Right.
Cool. So we can. I'm gonna bring it over and try to reactify it. But here's the thing.
Okay.
For some reason, I've been finding that while these things, and this isn't working. Let's try this one. While these SVG converters work pretty well overall, for some reason, this breaks them. And let me actually pull it up. I'm going to just do a I'm going to paste it into just an empty thing here. And for some reason, where's the XH? No. I had it earlier, but it seems to have changed around since I looked at it. Maybe it's not going to break. Oh, no, it's not breaking now. Interesting. All right. Never mind. This is working great, and we're going to roll with it. Cool.
Does it normally just break?
So there are, so if you have, and I'm curious where here. So this sometimes when you do a linear gradient can sometimes come in as, and you'll probably know what this is better than I do, but xlink href and then like that. So that for some reason breaks these formatters and it doesn't know what to do. It knows how to do everything else. It can change everything else from, normal to React, but when it sees that, it just poops the bed, for lack of a better term. Or I had a better term. I just wanted to say poops the bed. All right, so we've got that now. Let me actually do drawing.sv or .js, and we can paste that in. And yeah, so now I'm kind of setting us up for doing one of two ways. So if it doesn't work to have it as a component, we can do it as just an imported SVG like inside an image for as the source, and hopefully do it that way. But importing it as a component is always a bit easier to handle, in my opinion, for animating.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's available inline in the DOM is.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So cool. Then we can come over here.
So let's actually go back to that SVG really quick.
All right, cool.
Because we want to make a few changes here.
Cool.
So if we go up to the top where there's that root SVG node, not all of those things we're going to need. So we can get rid of that data name, and we can get rid of those two XML and S attributes, because if the SVG is inline, we don't really need those. If we were serving this as an external SVG file, then we probably would want those things, but we don't need those in this case.
Cool.
So basically, we just need our width, our height, our view box. We want to add one more thing. We're going to add an attribute called focusable. Yep. And we're going to put false. This usually isn't needed, but I find it's just an easy way to get over just a small bug that a very small amount of people will encounter. Older versions of Edge, so we're talking like 2018-ish versions of Edge and IE Internet Explorer users that are still somehow out there. Those by default made every SVG file that was inline focusable by default.
Oh, wow.
So if you happen to be tapping through your document, it would stop at every SVG file for some reason. I'm not sure why they did that, but that's just what they did. So by setting focusable false, on the very rare chance that someone's still using an earlier version of Edge, it just gets rid of that annoyance.
Cool, good to know.
So and the second thing is, so our SVG file here is a graphic, and that's going to be sitting amongst our contents. And in my opinion, that's a piece of content, this graphic. So we need to add some sort of alternative text. So if someone's using a screen reader or something, they can basically determine what this image is. Some people might argue it's not important, but I would argue that it is in this case, because we can see it and it's complementary to that text content, and it's a piece of that content. So inside, so just inside that, the opening SVG, we're going to add a title element.
Cool.
And we can give that an ID. We can call it something like, I don't know, drawing title or whatever.
Okay.
Perfect. And then we're going to write some nice descriptive alt text here. In this case, we might do something like Grim Reaper leaning against the trunk of a car, high-fiving a skeleton friend who has emerged from the trunk.
Honestly, I wouldn't want anyone to miss out on this, so I'm so glad that we are describing it to that detail, because it's, I would want everyone to get this experience, so that's perfect.
Perfect. Now on our opening SVG node there, we need to add an attribute for aria-labeled by.
Cool.
Yep. And we're just going to put equals, yep, and then base that drawing title.
Cool. Very nice.
And now, if we were to be using a screen reader or look in our dev tools at the accessibility tree, we would see that SVG file as a graphic with this title. And so now that's available to people who might be browsing through that method.
Awesome. Sweet. All right.
So,
do we want to plop it in now and take a look at it?
Yeah, so let's plop that in.
All right. I'm going to gut the rest of what we have here just to make this a little easier to get our heads around. So I'm going to go ahead, import drawing from drawing. When it's like the only illustration in your whole seed, it's tough to like name it, in my opinion. If it was just like the Reaper, it's a bit easier. Drawing from drawing. All right, I'm going to put it above the button just so we can see it. Let's see if this works. Come back over to here. All right, there we go. We've got it.
That reminds me of one extra thing we need to do to this SVG. If you notice along the top, our skeleton's head gets kind of cut off.
Yep.
And on the left, the Grim Reaper's sickle thing gets cut off. So if we go back to our SVG, we need to add overflow equals visible. And that's going to take care of that.
Let's hit save.
Perfect.
Let's see it. And yep, there we go. His head is looking a lot better. Perfect. Despite that crack. All right, cool.
Okay. So now let's add our title and our paragraph.
All right.
Or rather, a heading in our paragraph.
Yeah,
I was using
those.
H2. I'm not sure what your
bring those back real quick. Let me just. Actually, no. I'll do it this way. I shouldn't have gutted everything. I should have held on to this. Okay, so slice primary title. I can just do that. All right. So H1. No, it's an H2. I think. So slice.
I was using an H2. I'm not sure what your structure is on your site.
Yeah, well, I mean for each section. Yeah, so like I think up here is probably the H1, and then each section the top thing is an H2. So let's just see if that comes up with the thing. Great, share great deals, and I think we have a description too to feed off of.
We have
so rich text. How do I get to this? I know I can. Here we go, through here. Let's grab rich text. Here we go. Cool. And then we'll come back here. I love those features in VS Code, just being able to go back and dip into some. Let them know what a great deal you got. Alex, from a week ago, great writing, buddy. Well done. That's top notch. Yeah. Let them know what a great deal you got. Wow. Cool.
I like it.
Yes. All right. So, yeah. So cool. We've got. Do you want to style this, or we can maybe come back to this and okay, cool. We can
come back to it, or we can. Well, let's at least just center the stuff.
Cool.
So we can have our illustration centered and give it that same red background, just so we don't have it.
All right.
Floating on white.
Sounds good. Let's go. I'm just gonna do some Tailwind. We do have a
your thing.
SCSS sheet set up for when we need that, but for the most part, I'm just gonna center this real quick. Text center, font 3XL maybe. Where's it? Text 3XL. I always mix those. That's one thing Tailwind did not fix for me. I always mix those up in regular CSS and Tailwind. Just always have to think for a second about which one is which. Font. Oop, I did a thing there. Font is display. That's our freckle face that we got from Google. Is it cool if we use that for that?
Yeah, totally.
Cool. And then we want our red background, right, on this whole thing. So BG red. What is it? 800 or 700?
I think I was using 700. Or,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. And perfect. All right. So we want to center that drawing too. How do you want to do that? Do you want to wrap that in a div, or do you want to?
We can do that. What I did is I used what they call the padding hack, and I centered the outer div of that padding hack div. Because assuming people are going to be viewing this on mobile screens, we want to make sure our illustration will be responsive and shrink.
Cool.
As needed.
So teach us that. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
if we could go backwards one step back to our SVG, I think I forgot something.
Here. Cool.
Maybe I didn't. Oh yeah. So in addition to our ARIA labeled by, we also need to add a role attribute with the value of IMG.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. Can you say it again?
Sorry. So we need, in addition to our ARIA labeled by, which points to the title, we need to add a role attribute, ROLE, with the value of IMG or image. By default, SVGs, depending on the screen reader, will have a role of group or sometimes diagram. And by putting role and image, it makes sure it's absolutely going to be exposed as an image.
Awesome.
So I forgot that little piece. And then now we can return to what we were doing.
Cool.
And, the padding hack, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So the padding hack is a great way to make responsive elements. So I use it a lot for SVGs. Some people use it for like YouTube embeds, things like that. Basically, it's a way to allow an element to be responsive while retaining a certain aspect ratio. And then we have a new aspect ratio property in CSS. The support is not great.
I'm just going to pause you, Darin. I'm sorry to interrupt. Your audio is cutting in and out. Is there anything that you can do by chance?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just don't want people missing out on this because it's good stuff. How's it going, chat? Thank you for being here, and thank you, Angelo, for commenting on the checklist. It's small details, and Louis, that was very kind of you to say that it's getting nicer each week. I appreciate that. Just trying to match the quality of the guests, but that's quite hard.
Are you able to hear me, Alex?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so yes, I can. Is it me? He wasn't like you all aren't hearing static. Oh, maybe it was me. Can you talk again?
Me?
Yeah.
Test.
All right, so maybe that was me. I don't know for the rest of the viewers, but I don't really have an issue with Darin's voice. Oh, okay. It might have been me this whole time. I might have had a loose cord, Darin. Are you good to continue with what you got?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can absolutely. I might have had a loose cord. Sorry about that, everybody.
Oh,
Didn't mean to derail. All right, cool. Let's keep rolling. So, padding hack.
Padding hack. So in our markup, we basically want to have an outer div around our SVG,
Okay.
then an inner div, and then the SVG. It's basically div SVG.
Interesting. Okay. All right, and then I'm gonna move these two down to the bottom. I am not aware of this padding hack. I'm pretty excited.
You've probably seen some variation of it.
All right, so we've got our two divs.
Yep. All right. So we need to style, add styling to both those divs and the SVG.
Okay.
So if we want to add class name or whatever.
Cool.
Actually, we can just add a class name to the outer. We can just call it graphic wrapper or something like that.
Cool. And
Perfect.
for scoping this, just in case graphic wrapper is a thing, I'm going to put social share as a class here. I'm just going to wrap everything inside that just for easy scoping. Hope you don't mind.
Cool. Perfect.
Cool. All right. So graphic wrapper. Got it.
So graphic wrapper. And inside the graphic wrapper, we want to, we want to center it first. So we could do like, margin 0 auto or whatever. So it's centered. This is basically however we want to position the wrapper itself. And then I would do like width 100% and then max width, whatever, maybe max width 28 ems is what I think I was using.
Okay.
I think get rid of that S, right? Can we use an S?
I wrote down exactly what I heard. That's
No
cool. Yes, so that's the margin. Yep, got it.
So now inside the graphic wrapper, we can do like ampersand arrow div or whatever. So it's styling the div. Yep, it's direct child. So that we want to do position relative.
Cool.
And then we're going to do padding top. So this is where the padding hack gets its name. Padding top. And we'll leave this blank for a second
Okay.
And I'll come back to it in a moment. And then, so below the styling for this div, we need to add styling for the SVG.
So I want to do, should we just do it SVG here?
Yeah,
Cool.
that's perfect. And then basically we just want height 100%, width 100%, position absolute, and then left 0, top 0. So basically this is essentially telling the SVG to fill the width and height of its container, which is the inner div.
Got it.
So right now the inner div is 0 height because it has no height. Its child, this SVG, is positioned absolutely.
Right.
So this is where the padding hack's going to come into place. So where we have our padding top, this is where we're going to kind of basically figure out the aspect ratio of what we want. In this case, we know our SVG is 460 pixels wide by 265 pixels tall. So to figure out that aspect ratio, we're going to divide 265 by 460, which I think is 57.6%.
Cool. And so instead of this being height, this is all padding, and that's providing the sizing. So this is what we do until we get that sweet aspect ratio property that we're kind of waiting on, right?
Correct. And so
Awesome.
now if we were to change the width of our browser there, it should scale exactly.
Nice.
Scale with it.
Fix that later.
Yeah.
But perfect. Awesome.
That's what we're looking for. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
We do have 13 minutes left, so
okay.
Let's
oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I am rambling. I'm sorry for
that. No. I just want to make sure that we get to the meaty stuff.
Yeah.
Because the character animation stuff is just so good. I don't want people to miss out on that.
Okay. So let's jump back over to our JavaScript and start getting into the animation.
Cool.
So.
All right.
So our default state of our image is the high-fiving, right? So, which is what we want. We don't see any unneeded elements. We don't see those 4 arms, all that stuff. And this is great. So if for whatever reason we wanted to use this as a static image, it works like that. If for whatever reason our JavaScript doesn't load, still looks like a normal image, it doesn't look broken, that's perfect. So, but now that we do have JavaScript available, we're going to actually set it to its initial visual state. Okay. So we're going to have to start to move some things around of various elements and set some properties. And so first thing we're going to do, get references to all those elements that we're going to be interacting with. And cool. I can copy and paste that to you, or I don't know if you have that available yet.
I do, yeah. So for this, basically, we're going to want to take care, Louis. He's in the chat. He's not feeling great, so he's hopping off.
Oh, sorry, Louis.
Cool. So for this, since we're going to be referencing some of the things within drawing, what we're going to do is we're going to use a callback so that we're only querying for those once drawing has loaded in. So I'm going to do a couple React things real quick,
okay.
Where we're going to do use callback, and then let me see, move this out of the way a little bit. So we got const, let's go drawing ref equals use callback, and that's going to take a function, and that function is going to give us the actual drawing element. So from that we can do like drawing dot query selector.
Cool.
And so that's how we're going to do it, just to scope it to that specific element. So it's a bit easier.
Sure.
Okay, so drawing, and then we can just console log drawing. Oh, Louis only hungry. He's not he's not sick. I'm glad to hear that. I'm relieved, but I'm
Doesn't
also
Louis live in Belgium?
Yes, he does.
I feel like there's all sorts of delicious food there.
Yeah, I mean, like I don't think that he's going to die. I think he's just going to go get some of that delicious food. I think he's gonna say.
I feel like he's just rubbing it in.
Yeah, right. Gonna go eat some of my world famous food. So we're gonna pass this in, and then we're gonna use this as a ref inside drawing, so that when this loads in, we can do a ref. Yeah, we can just do a ref here. That shouldn't be a problem. So ref equals, and we're going to get this off of props. Let's just do this, where instead of just passing all the props into this SVG, we're only passing drawing ref. So let's pull that off of our props so that now we are passing in drawing ref. Drawing ref is a use callback. And then so once that loads in, we should see drawing ref in our console. Show me drawing ref. And yep, there's our SVG, just like we thought.
Nice.
So now we can do where did that go? Oh,
I have no idea what you just did, but it looks awesome.
Totally fine. Real quick, I just want to make sure what happened. Yeah, see, this is what I kind of was afraid of a little bit. It stripped all our IDs. Let me try to get that back real quick. Let me see. Is this where we copied it from? We did copy it from here, I think. Let me try this one. This one says it won't remove IDs. So, okay, so chat, what the issue is here is that Darin has given me an SVG, we can see here, where the ID of Reaper is kind of all over the place, but a lot of these SVG converters say, you don't need IDs, and that was the entire point that Darin went through in Illustrator of saying, here's our IDs, I named them very specifically, please don't delete these. But even when we get this, sometimes it'll still go through and delete those, and it's a little bit annoying, to be honest. I'm not sure why it chooses to delete some and not others, but let me see if I can get this to work real quick, so that we're not doing a lot of this by hand. I'm gonna keep that title.
Yeah.
So go from defs to the G. I'm gonna paste this in there. Let's see how many Reaper we have here. We have 4 now. So it's like you see what I mean? Where like it gave us some now.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Because okay, so the reason we need SVG Go has a cleanup IDs option if you can set it to false somewhere. SVG Go. Yeah, so this, but I need it in React. Is the thing, and this is gonna not change some of these things over, like it'll change gradient transform or whatever from being from stroke line cap to being camel case. So that's kind of the issue. So with SVG Go, you can do that. Here I don't see it anywhere, and here I see it, but it still did it. So trying to think of a quick way to fix this without having to go through and name everything, because it's a big SVG. Let me just try this one more time. Sorry about this. Clip path. No, right here. Defs. Reaper. We have fewer than before. Okay. Let's go through and we'll try to figure it out as we go. If we're missing any of the ones that we need. I think we will be, but we'll try to make it work.
If we just manually pasted that in, it would throw an error or something?
Yeah, hold on. Angelo just said, try this. Plugins, remove title false, remove viewbox false, clean up IDs false. Where am I trying that, Angelo? Angelo is my personal React expert. So nice. He's my coworker, and he's just pretty fantastic with this stuff. Am I using it in the config? Oh, okay. All right, let's try this. All right. SVGR, the sidebar to the left. Angelo, you are a king if this works. If not, we're still friends, but not as impressive. Let's try this. Reaper is still here 4 times. That's what I'm like.
We're getting there.
I don't know why. Why is it removing some of these but not others? It's baffling. All right, we're just gonna roll with this, and then we'll try to get things to work. All right.
Okay.
Cool. So we're getting the drawing. Now we're gonna do our selects, right? So
yeah,
I can
exactly.
pull that part up. So I'm kind of jumping over to Darin's CodePen that he will share with us at the end of this quite shortly. But basically, should I go ahead and drop these in here? I think that should be fine.
That should be good.
Cool. And then we have a bunch of selects where I like what you did, Darin. Okay, so for the chat, the reason we're pasting this in is that when you're animating these, there's just a lot of like these different elements that you want to get a hold of, but us typing it out on screen for you isn't really all that interesting. So we're just kind of pasting these in, and then we're going to assign these values of the actual elements, the actual SVG elements.
Yep.
And the way that you did this is kind of tidy. It's not like a huge hack, but it just kind of cleans up the code because we're going to be doing a lot of these. So instead of document.querySelector, we're scoping it to this drawing element. So we're going to be doing drawing.querySelector and drawing.querySelector all. So got that. Yeah, and Angelo, thank you for the attempt. I appreciate it. I don't know why it's stripping some of those things out. So from that, you have a nice big list of. Let me grab this over.
Do you have them, or do you need me to send them to you?
Nope, I've got them. Yeah, I've got your CodePen up. So Darin has kind of gone out and just grabbed every single one of these. The arms, the hands, right. So
basically every element we're going to interact with in our animation, we've created a variable for that references the element in the SVG.
Right. It makes a lot of sense. Now let's just do something quick to see how many of these we actually have. Let's just console log that list and see what we're getting back. Great. All right. And we also broke the top.
It looks like we lost, something there.
All right. Why is that top broken? Overflow visible. All right. Yeah, see, once again, and this is why I'm kind of wanting to get away from bringing this into React, just because like the translation part of this isn't interesting in my opinion. Where like the interesting bits are the part that you planned, right? Not so much the debugging a React SVG converter. So that we are not battling with React SVG stuff that's for some reason causing us trouble. Do you want to hop over to the CodePen and we can kind of take it from there and just kind of walk through what we're doing there?
Or I certainly can.
What you're doing there? I'm not doing anything.
I can.
Yeah, here you go. So I can pull it up if you want to kind of walk me through what we have here.
Cool. So we can kind of close that share it function and skip past that for now in our JavaScript there.
Okay.
So we've already talked about most of that.
So that's pretty much the same. So we have our share data. Cool. Yep. Same as before. Awesome.
Okay. So we start out the first two lines of this init function is we're basically getting a reference to the share graphic, which is the SVG itself, and the share button, which is the share this, that white button right there. Because we're going to be using those, obviously, in a minute. The share button, we need to attach the click handler to the share it function. And the share graphic, we're going to be hiding it initially. But first, we have this motion reduced graphic. And this is just using the match media, the browser's match media API to determine if the user has set a reduced motion preference through their operating system. And I don't think we're going to have time to get into that, but essentially what I do with that is I see if the user prefers no motion or not. If they do, then we're going to build a different timeline, or maybe even hide or skip past the animation altogether. If they don't have that setting, then we're just going to have our animation as normal.
Very cool.
So the next thing is we're actually going to set the opacity on the SVG element itself to 0 just for a moment, because we're going to be, hiding certain elements, revealing certain elements, and moving certain elements up and moving other ones down. We just want to hide that first, make all our changes, then reveal it as like in its initial state. So that's what we do here is we set sharegraphic.style.opacity to 0, which is going to hide it initially. while we make all these different settings first.
Cool.
Then we have we're selecting all the elements we're going to use. We just kind of went through that.
Yep.
Then for Gsat, we need to register the plugins we're going to use. So in this case, I use the Morph plugin, the Draw plugin, and the Scroll Trigger. The Morph SVG plugin is what I use to basically animate the arms from different states. So the arm from his hand on his hip to up to back to forward, whatever. I'm using that Morph SVG plugin to basically change the path data between those 2 points that I showed in Illustrator.
Cool.
And the Draw SVG plugin is basically allows you to animate the stroke on a path around. And that's what I'm going to be using to make a little starburst animation of when that high five happens.
Got it. Okay.
And the Scroll Trigger plugin is, because this component is further down the page, the Scroll Trigger plugin is basically just going to run our intro animation once the user scrolls this component into place, which is going to be the trunk opening and the skeleton popping out. You could also use like intersection observer or whatever, some other method, but just for ease, I use the Gsat Scroll Trigger plugin for that.
Perfect.
Okay, so we first need to set some initial visual properties of our illustration. So this is where all these Gsat set functions come in. And so, for example, the skeleton, we're bumping him on a y-axis down 170 pixels, which is basically hiding him below the trunk there. The Reaper arm, we're morphing that into the hand on the hip position. And the skeleton arm, we're morphing that down. The hands, same thing. For this trunk outer and the trunk inner shapes, so that darker, or rather, we can't see it now because it's hidden, but when the trunk is in its closed state, it's basically a blue, like a light blue, rectangle with rounded corners. What we're doing is we're making it visible because if you remember, in our initial state, it was hidden. And I'm setting this transform origin property so that when we do start to scale it, it's going to scale according to a certain registration point. So for the trunk outer, when we set the transform origin to 50% 0, we're basically setting the registration point to, on the horizontal axis, we want it in the middle, so 50%. And then on the y-axis, we want it at 0, which is at the very top. So when we start to scale it, it's going to scale from the middle of the top. And that'll make more sense in a minute.
Cool. Just super quick, in case people aren't familiar with GreenSock. So so as you said, the set is kind of just like like where we're starting from, right? Or I guess it doesn't have to be starting. It's just an immediate like set this right now, right?
Exactly.
And then the second, or sorry, the first argument that we're passing is.
Yeah, I apologize. I skipped
no.
past that.
That's why I'm here.
The set method in Gsat is basically just what you said. It's an immediate setting of a property or properties. There's no transition that happens. So the first parameter is the element that we're going to be dealing with. In this case, the skeleton. And the second parameter is going to be a group. And this contains all the properties we're looking to set. So in this case, we're using the Y property, which is going to translate that element on the Y-axis. And by putting 170, we're basically saying bump it down 170 pixels vertically.
So so that's the element that we're animating, and this is what we're doing to it. Can you explain real quick? We're passing this Reaper Arm 3. So so this is the element that we're morphing to take the position of this element.
Yeah. So we're morphing the Reaper Arm element, and this inside of our properties there. Or rather, our object containing the properties, we're using the Morph SVG keyword that tells the plugin, or that tells Gsat we're going to use its Morph SVG plugin. And this basically, all it needs is us to reference another element or a path of some sort. So in this case, we're saying, okay, we have element A, which is the Reaper Arm, morph it into the path used by element B, which is in this case Reaper Arm 3. So it's going to, it's basically going to set the path from one element to the path of another element. And if, say, we were doing this in an animation instead of a set function, this would happen over time, and we would see that happening. But in this case, it's just a quick 0 duration set.
So is it safe to say that Reaper Arm is always going to be the one moving, but these other things are kind of like
Exactly.
landmarks or something that we're gonna move them to, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
So
Cool.
the Reaper arm, Reaper hand, skeleton arm, skeleton hand. Those are the elements that we're seeing visually.
Got it.
And all these 2s and 3s and 4s are basically just hidden elements that we're just grabbing the path data out of.
They're like the keyframes that we're tweening towards.
Exactly.
Got it. Very cool.
And this is just one way of doing it. We could also have variables with that path data inside it, and we could just use the variable name.
Right.
In this case, I just used hidden elements.
That's great. Cool.
Yeah, but if we had like a much larger SVG file with a bunch of stuff where we had hundreds of, path data elements, we might just want to keep that separate and, but this is just one way of doing it.
No, it's great.
Cool. So we've set all our initial properties. Now we're going to get into creating, we only have a few minutes left. I'll try to do this quick without skipping over stuff. We're basically creating a timeline, which is a really awesome Gsat function that allows you to create sequences of animations. So we basically have this intro TL variable, and we're creating a timeline by calling the Gsat timeline function. And then I like to format it like this. Not everyone formats it like this, but I basically, going back a step, inside the timeline function, we also pass an object with any settings for that timeline. In this case, we're going to have it pause initially because we do not want it to play right away. We want to wait till it's scrolled into place.
Cool.
I put a delay of 1 second, and then we're referencing the scroll trigger keyword with this container.
So that's like a scroll trigger that once this comes into view, that's what's going to trigger this animation to play?
Exactly. That's saying once our share element comes into view, play this timeline.
Awesome.
So the next line where it says intro TL.
Sorry, I'm trying to find it again. Where did I lose it?
Nope, you're right.
There we go. Cool.
So I like to format it like this, where I basically, on line 104, I put the timeline name, and then on 112, I have the closing like semicolon, and then in between, I like to nest, or rather chain these different functions of my timeline. So Gsat has a variety of functions we can use inside timelines. The one that I think you'll primarily use is the to, which basically creates a to tween. It says, when you use a to tween, you're basically saying, take this element and we're gonna transition it to a certain property. There's also the opposite of that, which is a from tween. There's to from, where you can set both the beginning and end stage. There's from to, which is the opposite of that. And there's other stuff like staggers and function calls and things like that. But most of the time, I just use two functions to create two tweens.
Cool.
So first, we're gonna open the trunk, and then we can do this in 2 lines. The trunk outer, which is currently hidden because, well, we don't see it because our animation is played already.
Got it. I don't think I have the.
If we were to take that, like,
no, I don't have it here either.
If we were to take that scroll trigger share out, we could probably see it in its initial state.
A scroll trigger share here. Cool.
Yeah, we like comment that out for a sec. Sorry, not that whole line, but just the scroll trigger share. Yeah.
Got it.
Let's see if that.
Cool. All right. So that's the trunk outer and then trunk inner.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
So this is the trunk outer. So basically, scale Y is telling it to scale on the Y-axis down to 0. So right now it's scaled at 100% of its shape. If we scale it to 0, if you remember earlier, we set the registration point of it to the middle top. So when we scale it, it's going to scale up to the top like that.
Awesome.
And so the trunk inner in the next line is that kind of dark blue part that pops up that looks like the inside of the trunk. And so we're basically doing the opposite of that. Earlier in our settings, we scaled it down to start, and then we're now going to be scaling it up to 100% of it. So
cool.
We do these two things, one right after the other, and basically it's coming and kind of creating this illusion that a trunk is opening.
Yeah, so
that's what I was going for.
Had it smushed. That's the scale Y, and then we scale it Y1 or just 1, which is 100%, right?
Exactly.
Cool. Awesome. And this is the duration here. What's this arrow?
Yep, I was just going to talk about that.
Cool.
So
Sorry.
the last parameter of these kind of two functions is the position parameter in the timeline. So you can use all sorts of stuff in here. When you use a specific number, in some case 0, that's an absolute position. So that's saying this tween is going to happen at 0 seconds of this timeline. So basically right at the start. We could put 1, we could put 10, we could put 50. It would happen at 1 second, 10 seconds, 50 seconds, whatever. In this case, it's 0, which is right at the start of the timeline. When you use those arrow functions, it basically says, as soon as the previous line finishes, then we play this. So instead of, we could also just put, since we know that first line had a 0.5 second duration, we could just put 0.5 there. But this is a little more flexible. It allows you to change things.
Yeah, if you change this to 0.8, then you'd have to change this to 0.8. And so
exactly.
Very cool.
So we have the trunk opening by basically animating those two rectangles, one after the other. And then in those next two lines, we are basically just telling the skeleton, which if you recall, we've bumped down 170 pixels.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying, okay, 0.5 seconds before the previous line finishes, which is that position parameter at the end of line 110. We are, yep. So I'm using that arrow parameter again, but I'm using a negative number. So instead of being 0.5 seconds after the previous line finishes, it's going to be 0.5 seconds before the previous line finishes, which is what that negative will let us do. But
so
basically,
the timeline, it'll happen during this trunk inner
exactly
animation.
Yep, a half seconds before that finishes.
Cool.
So the skeleton, if you remember, is bumped down to 170 pixels on the y-axis. We're basically saying move it up to -10, and then move it down to 0, which is its starting point. This gives us a nice like pop-up effect that you get.
Yeah, so it goes up a little bit higher than his resting point.
Exactly, just a little bit of an overshoot, which is like a nice little animation technique that I'm sure you guys see everywhere. Yeah, and then, oh yeah, I mentioned this earlier, but in this case, if the user had preferred reduced motion, we're just going to jump to the end of this timeline where the trunk is already open.
Cool. So we didn't see the pop-up. I changed it to true just to test it. And yeah, it did exactly that. Cool.
Perfect.
All right.
And I feel like we're out of time, no?
Yeah, if you wanna so let's just try to go through. I mean, yes, but also I don't have a show on directly after this, so I sometimes go a little bit over, but at the same time, let's try to just kind of like pull out the big parts if that makes sense, so that we're not
sure.
Yeah, so like maybe I don't know, the Starburst or the Morph SVG or yeah.
Okay. So after the intro timeline, which we've seen plays when we scroll into view, that's the trunk popping open. We've created another timeline. Basically, I'm checking if motion's reduced. If it's not, then I'm going to build this high five timeline. So we basically started off by doing high five. We create Gsat timeline. That's creating another timeline. It's paused initially. We're not repeating it.
Cool.
Actually, that repeat delay doesn't need to be in there. That was left over from me just testing stuff out.
Cool.
But if we go through, let's look at that first one. This is the actual morphing of one of those arms. So we have the Reaper arm elements, and we're using inside the properties object. We can see that we're using the morph SVG keyword, which is telling us we're going to use the plugin that's going to morph path data for us. And we want it to morph into the shape, or rather the path data used by Reaper Arm 2 element. So it's currently the hand on the hip, and we're basically telling it to morph into this shape.
Got it.
And that's going to happen in 0.6 seconds. And I'm also throwing in some ease on there, the power one in and out. I feel like we could just spend a whole stream talking about eases.
And honestly, like if we had more time, I would drop the ease.
Ease visualizer there.
This is so great. And what you did before kind of reminded me of like a back ease where you kind of came out. Yeah, no, I could talk eases. That's a new show, I think. Just chatting eases or easy easin. I don't know. Chat help us name it. But yeah, so that's okay. So this is kind of just taking the arm and the hand, and you commented it very nicely. So the Reaper arm move up, and then skeleton arm move up. Okay, so we're moving them both.
Got it. Exactly. So so if you pay attention to the position parameters, which on your screen is in green, you'll see that I have the skeleton arm moving slightly offset from the Reaper arm. I feel like a lot of times when two different things happen at the same time, it looks very robotic. So by just offsetting them slightly, it kind of gives a little bit more of a natural feel to it.
That's such a good detail. I'm refreshing the timeline. Oh, right. It didn't do it yet. Share this. Yeah, I definitely saw that. It had a little bit of a delay. Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm using a 0.2 there for the skeleton arm instead of the 0. Yeah, all these lines are essentially the same thing, just happening at a different time. And they're all morphing to those various elements that we looked at earlier, the arm 2, the arm 3, the arm 4, just with different durations and so on. We can look at this Starburst animation that happens like right when they do the high five. So if you recall, the Starburst was a group, and inside the group there was eight lines, right?
Yep. Seeing them here just briefly.
And earlier we referenced the Starburst using our select all call. So when we pass in the Starbursts, reference to our 2 tween, another cool thing about GreenSock is that you can pass in references to a single element, or you can pass in, a list of elements, and it'll use them all. In this case, Starburst is referencing a node list and not a single node itself. So it's basically when we say Starburst, we're getting it to animate all 8 of those lines inside the Starburst group. So inside of our parameters, or rather our properties that we're going to be animating there on line 146, we're saying, hey, we're going to use the GreenSock Draw SVG plugin here. And the Draw SVG plugin is really cool. As I mentioned earlier, it allows you to adjust the stroke along a path. So if you think of like a train in a train station with tunnels on each side, how much of that train is visible if you move it in and out of those tunnels. So by default, a path, that's completely visible has a value of 100%. So the first value of that string there, that 0, 100% is the starting point of the stroke. And the second value is the ending point of the stroke. So if something has a starting value of 0% and an ending value of 100%, it means the entirety of that path is stroked, which is what, by default.
Right.
And so basically, we're saying, hey, on the next line, we're going to go from, earlier we set all those lines to be 0, 0. So basically we're moving the stroke all the way to the starting point. So there's no
the lines at the beginning, and then for this animation we tell the end point to go all the way to the end, right?
Exactly.
And then
immediately after that, we're moving it all the way to the end. Yeah.
And then
so we're going start, end, end.
And then you reset it back to 0, 0, but because it's a set, it's not going to animate back along. It's just gonna
You don't see it. It's just an immediate thing. That's what allows us to keep replaying that Starburst.
Yeah, that's such a nice touch. Awesome.
And then the only other thing notable is for the kind of this loop that happens, I've just created a third timeline called high five loop, which basically just redoes this every 3 seconds or so.
Yeah.
There's nothing new inside that. It's just the same.
But it doesn't go back down to the side and then back up. It just goes through a limited set of the keyframes, I guess. That's awesome. And that's such a nice touch just to have that kind of that small loop. It's not it doesn't feel jarring to it doesn't feel like the animation is resetting or something's broken. It's just a nice touch to continue the delight. Yeah, this is great. And so just to go back to, I know we kind of skipped it because we already touched on it.
Oh, yeah.
This is all kicking off because if
So go back
Navigator
to our
share,
share it function.
yeah,
If we look at our navigator.share call, when it's successful, it's going to do what's inside of that then statement. So basically, we just put on, was it line 42 there? We have high five timeline and dot play. Because if you remember, our high five timeline is we paused it initially. And so at this point, we're just waiting for a time to call play.
cool.
And once that promise comes back completed, the shares happened, we hit play, they high five, everyone's loving it.
Awesome, Darin. This is so cool. This is it's a super cool API. The character animation tips that you shared are fantastic. Honestly, I'm gonna check off that last bit. Like even the small details like offsetting the skeleton's arm movement from the Reapers just by like a fraction of a second is such a great tip. The arms being paths. You introduced us to a bit of Morph SVG and Draw SVG, so now I have like a better idea of the difference there, so that I can move the Reaper arm along several keyframes with this Morph SVG plugin. I know Cassie, who's in the chat, was probably loving this. She is the Green Sock ambassador,
Green Sock queen.
and she just posted actually. She says, "This was ace. Thanks, Darin. I've just made a 10% off for an Horse coupon code for Club Gsat, just in case anyone wants to sign up. Horse 10."
Nice.
She says she loves it. Honestly.
Oh,
like,
also,
yeah.
I was gonna say one thing that I bet your viewers don't realize is that so this illustration here, the Reaper and the skeleton, some just behind the scenes info is you came down to Brooklyn and we actually shot this, you and me doing that.
Yep.
And this illustration is just rotoscopes over the video of us doing that.
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to reveal that or if I mean, see, my arms, it's perfect. They're so thin that it was like you didn't have to change anything, so it was perfect. You had to change a bit for yours.
I just put a filter over you, and that was all I had to do.
I was a little frustrated with how long you kept me in the trunk. I know you wanted me to begin like method acting, but it was a couple hours, Darin.
Yeah.
I was in there it was a hot day.
I lost the keys, so we were just
you
trying to
said
figure
that, but I don't. No, but so Cassie says the lesser used GSAP rotoscope plugin. Yeah, it's not as popular as the others. Yes, but what Cassie just said in the chat with Horse 10, love that coupon code. Thank you so much, Cassie. So Green Sock, phenomenal library. Not every single one of the plugins are free. Some of the best ones are, but like the amount of work, Darin, that you would have to do to do the Morph SVG, like right,
without the plugin.
Yeah, like some SVG morphs, especially like I'm thinking of Craig Roblansky. I'm gonna butcher your name, Craig. I'm so sorry, but he has like a phenomenal Star Wars Morph SVG thing where like it can take SVGs that are very, very different and morph them together, and it's fantastic. But I highly recommend checking out Green Sock. It's kind of the animation standard for pretty much everything. So thank you so much, Cassie. Thank you so much, Darin, for this fantastic component. I will work to get it added to the site. Sorry that it didn't work out exactly, but I dropped the code pen in the chat so everyone else can go play with it and see this high five goodness. It's just such a fun component. I'm thrilled. And chat, we've got an almost completed site, but like check this out. This is such a cool site. I had very little to do with it, but I'm so proud of just like you to Louis, to Jamie, to Ryan and Darin. You all did some fantastic stuff. Thank you so much for coming on and just making another super fun site. I'm so excited. Next month we have the theme of heavy metal burger joint. So a burger joint completely based and themed around heavy metal, hard rock, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a blast. I'm really excited. We've got some fantastic people already signed up, working on getting a couple more, but we're going to have 5 components because it is a big month. And so thank you so much to everyone. And I'm dropping the website in there. Let's do the raffle draw, and then I will let Darin go and live his life because he's been on for a while. So thank you, Darin, for
thank you.
sticking with me through this. Only have
Sure,
three people in the raffle. Anyone wanna jump in on that raffle real quick? Hit !! Enter super quick, and then I'll do this draw. I don't want to do it before anyone wants to get in. Awkward fruits, or I saw Tony in the chat, and we are doing good. Tony, thank you for asking. Give another 5 seconds on this raffle draw. Hit ! Enter to enter. I'm gonna go ahead 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and close it up. All right, and now what is happening? Why can't I pick a winner? Entry open, close entries. That's not working. I mean, I could really like roll or flip a coin at this point. There were 3 people listed. All right, pick winner. G-Nook, congratulations, you have won. I will DM you on Twitter or DM me on Twitter, right? That's always easier. I don't know why So congratulations, well done. Let's give him a round of applause and a little bit of a high five. Congrats on that fantastic prize. So thank you, everybody. Let's see real quick. Is my good friend Colby, is he streaming still? He is. Let's go raid Colby. Colby Fayok is a very, very dear friend. He's a fantastic guy, and he is streaming right now. So let's start that raid. Please hang in here, and let's go drop a few people into his chat. He's a lovely person. You should definitely follow him and hit follow here first so that you can be notified next week when we go live. So go ahead, hit follow, become a horse. Darin, thank you again. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off?
No, I got nothing. Just thanks for having me. It was fun.
Appreciate it. All right. Bye, everybody. See you next week.
See ya.